Live from KSAT 12. The 6 o'clock news starts right now.
We are learning more in the aftermath of a gut-wrenching case of domestic violence. A 1-year-old girl shot and killed. A 2-year-old girl and their mother also shot, allegedly by the woman's ex-husband.
More funding into domestic violence intervention and prevention programs is resulting in more cases being reported, but city officials say combating domestic violence is an all-hands effort.
We're going to get to the latest on that investigation in just a moment, but Jonathan Cotto spoke with the deputy city manager to learn what investments have been made to not only intervene but prevent domestic violence.
From 2020 to our current...
San Antonio's Deputy City Manager Maria Villagomez says domestic violence has been their top priority over the past 4 years. She says from 2020 to now, the city has increased its funding by 50%.
We spend on an annual basis about $31 million in domestic violence. And this includes the efforts of our police department, Metro Health, and Human Services.
She says when it comes to domestic violence prevention, the Department of Human Services has invested about $200 million annually in getting assistance from nonprofit organizations.
They help us provide those services to the community with the goal of preventing domestic violence.
Villagomez says they are always looking for ways to prevent abuse as well as ways to intervene. They've increased the number of crisis response teams and case management teams at Metro Health and the police department.
We have dedicated units through the Special Victims Advocacy Unit and family violence to be able to investigate those cases of domestic violence when it comes to intervention.
She says combating domestic violence is an issue the city can't tackle alone.
And so it's really a community approach to try to address this very important issue for our community.
Despite additional funding and an increase in resources, Villagomez says domestic violence is still very much underreported.
Those abusive relationships are not okay. They're not normal. And there's a lot of organizations, including the city of San Antonio, the county, and nonprofit organizations that we're here to help.
Jonathan Cotto, KSAT 12 News.
And now to the latest on that domestic violence case in which police say a man killed a 1-year-old girl and shot a toddler and his ex-wife. Tonight we are learning more about how that relationship may have fallen apart. 50-year-old Stephen Clare is charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and capital murder for the death of his 11-month-old daughter. Records show Clare and his 28-year-old ex-wife divorced in late December, less than 2 years after he filed for a court-ordered paternity test. Now, the couple had been living apart since January of last year. San Antonio police had been in the home in the 500 block of Robin Hood Place last October for a domestic disturbance, but the suspect took off before officers arrived. SAPD officials today declined to release the names of the people involved in that incident since no one was formally charged.
I'm sure something was seen someplace at a restaurant. Something must have been heard. Frustration, very frustrating.
The suspect, Claire, is continuing to be held in jail tonight on bonds totaling $2 million. Officials have not released an updated condition of the 2-year-old. The mother went through surgery last night and is expected to survive.
New images from San Antonio police could hold the answers to a capital murder case from back in March. We now know that it was 26-year-old Justin Cliff who was hurt in a fight and then robbed downtown on March 5th. He died from those injuries. Courtney Friedman joins us live now from the newsroom with what's in those images. Courtney.
Yeah, Myra, a lot of times we get surveillance footage and it's a little bit grainy. Well, these pictures are very clear and easy to see. And the hope is that we can put these out there and someone will recognize one or even several people in these pictures. Here they are full screen, so take a quick look. Back in March, it was 2 a.m. in the 100 block of Alamo Plaza outside a few bars in that area when Justin Cliff got into a confrontation with 4 men and 2 women he did not know. These are allegedly people from that group in these pictures. One of the men hit Cliff, causing him to hit the concrete, being knocked unconscious.
While he was unconscious on the ground, several of the persons of interest took personal property off of him. They also didn't call for help. They didn't render any aid.
Cliff actually woke up and was taken to a friend's house, but there he fell unconscious again. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. So again, there were a lot of people downtown that night who may have seen these people or what happened. If you have any information, no matter how big or small, call SAPD's homicide unit, 210-207-7635. And of course, you can remain anonymous. Tim.
Courtney, a New Braunfels man is now in custody in connection with the murder of a Houston rapper. Houston police say 40-year-old Montrell Burley was arrested for the alleged shooting and killing of rapper BTB Savage, whose real name is Daryl Gentry. That shooting happened on March 30th in Houston in the neighborhood of River Oaks. Houston police say Burley's cell phone data showed him near Gentry's apartment leading up to the shooting. The data also showed Burley return home to New Braunfels that night. He's currently being held in the Harris County Jail.
A man is in jail after New Braunfels police say he led them on a chase by car and on foot. New Braunfels police say 42-year-old Michael Redford allegedly stole his girlfriend's car and threatened her overnight Monday. When officers got there, they say Redford drove off, leading them on a chase into the Schertz area near Randolph Air Force Base. Authorities say he ended up crashing into a fence at a home. He tried running, but he was caught shortly after. Redford is now facing charges of evading arrest with a vehicle and possession of methamphetamine.
No new plans, but plenty of existing ones.
Mayor Ron Nirenberg gave his State of the City address this afternoon to a packed crowd at the convention center. City Hall reporter Garrett Berger tells us his remarks were focused on following through.
Mariachis were the only surprise during Mayor Ron Nirenberg's State of the City address, which happened to also fall on his birthday.
Well, it's easy to break news when you're first year on the job, but a lot of the plans and proposals that we talked about early in my tenure are now in place.
With nearly 6 years at the head of the city, Nirenberg brought up previous priorities like housing, transportation, and workforce development. But he said for the most part, the time for talk on those issues is over. Now it's about implementation.
And I can attest that the state of the city is poised for takeoff as we gain momentum and invest in the people in San Antonio.
1, 2, 3.
The $150 million housing bond has passed, and the city's working on how to spend it. The plan to add a new airport terminal is underway. VIA is pursuing federal money for its advanced rapid transit idea, and the workforce development program the mayor campaigned hard for during the pandemic is nearly a year into operations.
Launching the Ready to Work program has been a complex task, but I'm encouraged by the demand for training.
The mayor brushed off questions afterward, though, about whether Ready to Work was truly measuring up. After almost 11 months, more than 13,000 people have applied, but only about 2,000 have actually enrolled in training, which is less than half of the first-year goal.
We need to continue to build momentum in that program, but this is the first part of a long-term effort to change the trajectory of a city that has been mired in low-wage jobs, and I believe we're doing that.
One plan of many.
The mayor's hoping to oversee those plans for 2 more years. He's seeking a 4th and final term as mayor in the May 6th election. He faces 8 challengers. Live downtown, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. Happening around Texas. A Texas state representative is being accused of having a potentially inappropriate relationship with an intern. That is according to a Texas Tribune report. According to the Tribune, an internal complaint has been filed against GOP lawmaker Brian Slayton. He allegedly invited an intern under the age of 21 to his home and shared alcohol with her, then later told the intern not to speak about it with anybody. An attorney representing Slayton called the claims, quote, outrageous and false. A legislative staffer supposedly reported that complaint to the Texas House General Investigating Committee.
The price of eggs is finally coming down. Around 3 months ago, you might remember this, the price of a dozen large grade A eggs at H-E-B was around $4.48. Now it's $2.63. At Walmart, prices also dropped from $5.28 to $2.98. So with egg prices falling, which ones are worth it to buy? According to Consumer Reports, some labels that you can ignore when shopping for eggs are farm fresh, natural, and no hormones.
All eggs are from farms and all eggs are natural. So farm fresh and natural really has no clear meaning. And by law, chickens can't be given hormones. So a carton of eggs that has these claims isn't really any different from a carton that doesn't.
Consumer Reports also says if you plan on paying a premium price for eggs, make sure you do your research and you know what you're getting and what you're paying for.
Let's take a live look outside on this Tuesday evening. Where'd the sun go?
It's kind of a hazy view here, but we've seen some other camera shots around town. The sky is a pretty blue out there, Adam.
Yeah, just one of those cumulus clouds casting a shadow upon the ground there. That's why it's looking a little darker, but downtown, of course, bright sunshine over downtown. Now, we have a few highly isolated pop-up showers west of San Antonio. You look at the radar over the past couple of hours, just a couple of them. You can basically count them on one hand. And one just developed recently over Uvalde. Now, earlier, one fell apart right before it made it to Uvalde. But just a little bit ago, this one downpour popped up over Uvalde. Now that it moved out of town, it's actually starting to dissipate, and just west of Batesville dissipating as well. And you get up into Edwards County, just southwest of Rock Springs, a few hit or miss, highly isolated, brief, short-lived showers. And you look at the rainfall total from these, one nice little streak west of Concan all the way down to Uvalde. Over an inch estimated, actually an inch and a half, just west of Concan there, paralleling Highway 83, but west of 83. And then Uvalde picked up a tenth of an inch from that shower. We'll be back to talk about some noticeable changes in the extended forecast, along with the cold front, what it means for rain chances and temperatures in just a bit.
All right, Adam, we'll see you then. Take a look at your Tuesday evening commute with your traffic authority, looking at I-35 and Thousand Oaks. Not too bad on the one side there, a little slow going on the opposite way as folks make their way home.
While things may be back to normal, COVID-19 is still certainly part of our lives. Coming up, a look at the numbers here in San Antonio and why one doctor is asking people to keep their guard up during Fiesta. Here's a look at what we're working on for you tonight on the Night Beat. The San Antonio Missions are in action tonight, and the club's new ownership group is sharing future plans for this organization. Tonight, what that group has planned to keep minor league baseball in San Antonio. That story and more tonight on the Night Beat.
But right now, let's turn to COVID. You may not hear much about the virus anymore, but it is still part of our daily lives.
Yeah, it is still out there. Last night, President Joe Biden signed legislation that officially ended the national emergency declaration for COVID-19. And while a lot of things have returned back to normal, RJ Marquez tells us why a local doctor says now is not the time to let your guard down.
COVID cases continue to drop in the San Antonio area, but as we get set for more big events like Fiesta, local health officials say we need to stay vigilant.
I know it's easy to think that COVID is gone because we're living our lives like we did before 2020, but there still is COVID in the community.
The city's current risk level is low, with around 45 new cases per 100,000 people.
We're down to about 120 or so per day, and most of those are not complicated cases. Still, there are people that get very sick, and we still have people in the hospital with COVID.
Dr. Charisse Rohr-Allegrini says the city's vaccination levels have helped keep COVID at bay here at home.
We're upwards of 70% of the population has at least 2 doses, which is great. However, we know there's more variants, and the more recent vaccine has those variants in it.
The Centers for Disease Control says the dominant variant at the moment is the Omicron XBB.1.5, also called the Kraken. And it spread quickly throughout the Northeast, including among those who have been previously infected or vaccinated. Dr. Rohr-Allegrini says this is proof the virus will continue to mutate, so keeping up with boosters as the variant changes is key.
It's best to get the more recent vaccine, and for that, we're only at about, I want to say, 20 to 30% of the population. The way the virus evolves and mutates is different, but we will probably see requests for multiple vaccines, at least for the next few years, until we get the perfect vaccine.
She says all the old rules still apply. Stay cautious in crowds, use a mask if you feel comfortable wearing one, and practice proper hygiene.
If you've got any illness, you shouldn't be out and about potentially giving it to others, so just being conscientious about that is important.
RJ Marquez, KSAT 12 News.
Let's take a look outside with Sky 12. We just talked about them, the missions in action tonight. Sky 12 here above Wolf Stadium. It'd be a beautiful day to be out at a ballpark.
I think first pitch is scheduled for later tonight, about 7 o'clock.
Yeah, those blue skies out there, Adam, this morning was perfect. Hope that lasts.
You know, it was. And because of the lack of humidity in the air, we will have more comfortably cool perfect mornings. Perfect.
Woohoo.
Yes, they'll be in the 50s for the most part. Some variations because the humidity will briefly return in the extended forecast. Some small storm chances out there as well. Comfortable with the low humidity except for about a day and a half. And then a Saturday cold front's going to reset things a little bit and give us a slight chance of storm. So let's get right into it. Looking outside, a lot of us just have that bright sunshine with the fair weather cumulus clouds rolling overhead. Those white patches you see on the screen. But as I showed you earlier, off to the west, we had a few highly isolated showers and brief non-severe thunderstorms, just quick splash and dash activity. It's going to be coming to an end as we lose our daytime heating and that sun sets. The real action in the large scale areas of rain and even some thunderstorms, Louisiana coast, parts of the central Gulf Coast here because of this big upper level disturbance, this counterclockwise circulation, closed low that's cut itself off from the main steering flow in the atmosphere. So it's just sitting here and drifting. It's going to continue to generate showers along the Gulf Coast, just not the Texas Gulf Coast. Out ahead of it is where the good energy is, and that's where it's going to be from Louisiana through Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and even stretching into Georgia as well. Whereas this system that's in the Pacific Northwest, that's actually what's going to get that moving as we get into Friday and this upcoming weekend. So here's our overall upper level pattern. This is a kicker trough. It comes in, it opens up the flow of that closed low, starts to kick it out and move it out. This will help generate a cold front that will move through our neck of the woods late morning to early afternoon on Saturday, but we're not expecting much in terms of rain from it. We need one of those better large scale systems like what we had last Thursday and Friday. Oh, wasn't that something? We got a taste of the good life. Now I want more of it. But you look at the general trend of where most of the precipitation will be over the next 7 days, and it's especially east of the Rockies, but not so much here in south and central Texas. Now, we do have the chance for a few showers and storms, but it's one of those situations where we're not expecting a whole lot to develop. Friday, that we'll have a lot of instability Friday, but we're going to have to rely on the West Texas dry line moving its way into town and actually developing some thunderstorms. Friday is one of those situations where we don't have a lot of confidence in anything developing, but if something does happen to pop, then it's likely to become strong to severe. So we're watching that one closely, but again, nothing to really plan around right now. Saturday, a 20 to 30% chances that cold front moves in. Right now, we're 75 degrees, dew point of 51. There's that dry air, lack of mugginess. And partially, we can thank that upper level cutoff low over Louisiana, because that just keeps us in this northerly flow aloft and keeps us in this pattern where we don't get that flow coming off the Gulf of Mexico. This will be the case the next couple of days, Wednesday and Thursday. Then by Friday, the humidity moves back in, dew points in the 60s, not as perfect of a morning then. Even on into Saturday morning and Saturday midday, you'll notice that humidity before that cold front sweeps it away. So tomorrow morning, 53 at 7 a.m. in San Antonio. We'll have some upper 40s in the hill country, then sunny. And by noon, we're at 72 degrees, right up near 80 for the high. I think officially we'll be 79, but there are areas that'll hit 80. Nixon, Smiley, Floresville, 80 degrees. Sabinal, 81 the high temperature. The warmest we'll get 87 on Saturday, but notice that cold front just resetting us back to those perfect Myra mornings.
That's what I like to hear. Thanks, Adam.
We're talking football in April. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
We're talking the KSAT Pigskin Classic. Larry's here. We know all of the matchups now.
Yes, so it's 4 games over 2 days, a game on Friday, the triple header on Saturday. And one of the games on Saturday will feature Southside versus Somerset. We're going to hear from those head coaches. Plus, in the NFL, the Houston Texans started voluntary workouts. Coming up.
Gary DeLon used to say this all the time. He'd say, when these kids play at the Alamo Dome, it's not a ball game, it's an occasion.
Yeah, the KSAT Pigskin Classic is an occasion, and that's for sure. Richard Oliver with the city of San Antonio, quoting the great late Gary DeLon in Big Board Sports. We are 4.5 months away from the 2023 Pigskin Classic. Let the buildup begin. Right this morning at the Alamo Dome, we announced the 2-day, 8-team event that will take place August 25th and 26th at the Alamo Dome. The second annual KSAT Pigskin Classic is even bigger this season, as it should be. First up on Friday night will be a tap showdown between Antonian and Holy Cross. Saturday morning, the tripleheader will feature in order Southside versus Somerset, Jefferson versus Uvalde, and O'Connor versus Brandeis to close it out. We heard from Antonian and Holy Cross at 5. Now let's talk with Coach Locke and Coach Detmer and get their thoughts about playing in the second annual KSAT Pigskin Classic.
Very honored and excited. I think it's a great thing for our school and our community, and we're just very, very fortunate to be asked, very honored, and we're excited to be here. It's going to be a fun event.
Man, it's awesome. It's a great event that they put on, and we're really proud to be a part of it and fortunate. And I know it's going to be a big game with us in Southside. It always is. It's a tough rivalry game and always a hard-fought game, but really thankful that we get a chance to be a part of this event.
Antonian and Holy Cross will kick off the 2023 KSAT Pigskin Classic Friday night, August 25th, 7 p.m. at the Alamo Dome. Then on Saturday, we'll bring you 3 games, 11:30 a.m. will feature Southside and Somerset. The middle game at 3:30 will see Jefferson against Uvalde, and the nightcap at 7:30 p.m. will have O'Connor against Brandeis. All games will be played at the Alamo Dome, and you can watch them all live on KSAT 12, KSAT Plus, KSAT.com, the BGC app, and YouTube. The Houston Texans started their offseason workout program today, and here's some of the guys walking into the Texans training facility, including new tight end Dalton Schultz, who signed a 1-year deal with the Texans after the Dallas Cowboys allowed him to become a free agent. The start of the team's voluntary 9-week offseason workout program will allow new head coach DeMeco Ryans to start installing the new systems on both offense and defense, all while, of course, getting to know his guys just a little bit better. The former Texans Pro Bowl linebacker and team captain was asked what was his message to the team today.
Our first day of off season started, and it was encouraging. Great participation from a lot of our guys, and for me, the message to our guys is really just, how are we showing up? Right, showing up on purpose, being detailed, oriented in how we work, and just continue to have a growth mindset in everything we do. Right, our guys understand that we want to be the best. We have to continue to strive to be better each day in everything that we do.
The Texans' next offseason workout is voluntary minicamp scheduled April 25th through the 27th. And the Texans are banking on Ryans turning the Texans back into winners. I think he's got the attitude to do it for sure.
Wish them well.
Yep.
Wish August would be here a lot faster.
I know you do.
It's coming. It'll get here soon. We'll be right back. The legislative session up in Austin is well underway. So what are lawmakers up to right now, especially when it comes to those big items that we were all anticipating would be discussed ahead of things getting started at the Capitol? We have Scott Braddock with us, the editor of the Quorum Report, to talk about all of that and more. Scott, always great to see you. There's something happening right now as we speak on one of the big ticket items when it comes to school choice, school vouchers. What's going on right now?
I don't even know if you can see this, but I'm back in my home office. I'm always at the Capitol. Basically, I'm watching the Texas House Public Education Committee. They have been meeting since 8 o'clock this morning. They took a break for the regular House floor session, but early this morning they had more than 200 people signed up to talk about school choice or vouchers, education savings accounts, whatever you want to call it. What it is this: it's diverting money from public education in Texas to go to private institutions, and of course that's where all the controversy comes into play. I would expect this hearing to go well past midnight. This is one of the governor's top priorities, as you mentioned. But really last week, he sort of had the door slammed in his face by the Texas House of Representatives. Almost 90 votes against vouchers during the budget debate. And without getting into the weeds of all of that, all the procedural stuff, bottom line is I think the governor needs to be, and probably is, trying to reassess exactly what he's going to do as far as his strategy on this going forward. Because the last time that same amendment was voted on in previous legislative sessions, about 115 no votes against vouchers. And if you add in all of those who voted present not voting, and if you flip a few votes here and there, I would say the governor really hasn't moved the needle much at all. That's the bottom line in the Texas House, where there's still strong opposition to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of school vouchers. This is hardly the first legislative session that this has been discussed. This education savings account, that's a little bit different. But I'm just curious if it seems like one of the governor's big ticket items when it comes to, as he put it, parental rights ahead of this session. What happens now? I mean, you mentioned kind of going back to the drawing board, but is this education savings idea so far dead in the water?
I wouldn't say that it's dead in the water, but the governor has a huge fight on his hands going forward if he wants to try to pass this year. I would say that there's almost no chance whatsoever that it can be passed in a regular session after that vote. And that's after, as you know, Myra, he has poured so much of his political capital into this. Every time you see the governor lately, if he's not talking about the border or fentanyl, he's talking about school choice and parental empowerment, right? This is one of the top things for him. And I just don't see him being able to do this during a regular session after that vote. But that doesn't mean that he can't crush his opposition during a special session or special sessions, which makes me shiver because all these folks will stay here in Austin for a while with us if that happens. But I don't think he can get it done here in the short term.
As you keep an eye on that tonight, another big debate in the House and Senate and the Texas legislature always comes down to property taxes. We've all got our appraisals in the mail recently. We've seen the increases again. What is going on when it comes to property taxes and potentially lowering them for Texas?
Tim, there are two big competing proposals on this. One is in the Texas House, which has to do with capping appraisals at 5% for both businesses and for homeowners. And the other has to do with increasing the homestead exemption. That's the plan that's preferred by the Texas Senate. And that's, of course, under the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Patrick has said he's not going to compromise with the House on this. He says he wants his plan to go forward. And earlier today, there were sort of some sparks on this flying at the Capitol. When you had one Texas House GOP chairman, Dustin Burrows, who is from Lubbock, he was calling out a group that represents tax advisors. It's a trade association for those folks. Senator Paul Betancourt, who is the Senate's point man on taxes, he happens to belong to that trade association because he is a tax advisor in Houston. And Chairman Burrows was arguing that Betancourt and the folks who are in his industry basically make their money. They get rich off of helping people protest their property taxes. And Burrows is arguing that's why the Senate doesn't want to do that, to cap appraisals at 3 or 5%, whatever the final proposal ends up being on that. Basically, he was saying that the senator is standing in the way of property tax relief for you because he gets rich off of it. And the senator fired back and said, look, these people need to get a life. Those were his words. He said that people at the Capitol, including his fellow Republicans, need to get on board with the Senate's proposal, which again is increasing homestead exemptions, which of course does require a constitutional amendment. And if you remember, just last year, May of last year, there was a vote on that, 2 constitutional amendments in 2022 that had to do with capping or had to do with raising that homestead exemption. And those both passed, among Texas voters by 87 and 85%. So Senator Betancourt is correct. There is a lot of support for that idea and continuing to do more of that.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if and when those two plans might align in some way. I know property tax relief is a huge thing a lot of people are paying attention to. There's another interesting topic I want to ask you about that I know a lot of people would take an interest in. Legalized gambling in Texas, sports betting. We talked about this with you before this session got started. Has that gone anywhere at all in Austin?
Only inch by inch through the process so far. In the Texas House of Representatives, one of the key committees did move forward on bills to legalize casino gambling as well as sports betting. But there's still a question, Myra, as to whether or not you're going to see it get a vote in the full Texas House of Representatives, because that's a constitutional amendment. It's a constitutional amendment requirement to expand gambling in Texas. We have one of the strictest prohibitions on expansion of gambling in the country written right into our Constitution, so it has to be changed. It takes a 2/3 vote. I'm not sure the 2/3 of the Texas House, that's 100 members, I'm not sure if they're ready to support it, and that one does seem dead in the water in the Texas Senate, where Lieutenant Governor Patrick has certainly not shown any interest in it. He hasn't said that he's all for it, but he's certainly not pushing for it the way House leadership is.
Well, lawmakers certainly have plenty of other big topics to hammer out and find out where Texas goes from here on those. Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report, as always, thanks so much for being here this evening.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you all.
Now get back to listening to the testimony.
I'll go back to work now. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks for your time.
We'll be right back.